is probably my 6th or 7th studio over the last 20 years of sewing and textile art making, and each studio has solved a problem that the previous studio had, but they also revealed a new lesson to be learned and a new frustration. This studio is a result of everything I learned from all of those previous studios. This is not going to be an ordinary studio, so let me show you what I mean. This studio was not designed to impress people. It was designed to support the way that I work right now. The very first thing I wanted to do was build an infrastructure that would support me based on the things I learned from those previous studios. These included good lighting. You can see I wear glasses and my eyesight is horrible, so I need very good lighting and I need bright lights. So I had an electrician come in and install track lighting throughout the studio. My husband says it's bright enough for the military base down the street to land their aircraft in my studio, but that's okay. I can see, and that's what counts. The second most important thing was good, comfortable flooring. I spent so many years working on concrete floors, and I just didn't want to do it again. So I splurged, and I put down cork flooring. Now, I'm going to admit, it was pricey, but I did save money putting it down myself. Another thing I learned is you can't have too many electrical outlets, so I didn't want extension cords running all over the studio, so I had the electrician put in some additional outlets. I currently have 24 plugins, well, 24, not 2, 24 plugins in the studio, and hopefully that will be enough. Now, none of these were exciting decisions, but for me, they needed to be done. They were necessary before I could move on to those other steps. And they are decisions that will make working in this studio for long hours doable and enjoyable. I've learned over the past 20 years that the studio has to support the artist before it can support the art. Now, once the foundation was in place, I could move on to some of the more exciting stuff. Now, I already had a number of smaller workstations from my previous studios, so those came with me. I already had my sewing table, so those came with me again. But the first new thing that I built in the studio was a large center island. And the reason that I built that large center island, when it came time when I was working on multiple projects, there just wasn't enough room. So I wanted a larger work surface, which I had in my Florida studio, but not in my Kentucky studio. And I wanted that work surface so that if I was working on multiple projects, I had room to move around the table and not have to constantly put things away and bring them back out again. Now, if you're a type of person who only works on one project at a time, you may not need that. But the thing is, design your space for the way you work. And that made me realize that this is not just a table. It's about creative momentum. It's about being able to work the way that you like to work. And in my case, that means keeping multiple projects going at the same time. I realized it wasn't about organizing supplies anymore. It was about organizing around the way that I work. Now, I don't like visual clutter, so I chose closed cabinetry for most of my organization. Or I closed cabinetry or storage units that I could put things in bins, but I didn't have to see everything. So I don't have to search for things. I have certain cabinets for threads, and I have a loft storage for seldom used items. It also means I spend less time searching for stuff, less interruptions, and more time creating, which is the whole point, isn't it? Now, I know some people, they really need to see their stuff, and that's fine. Don't organize based on this pretty picture you saw on Pinterest or Instagram. Organize for the way you work. Now, at this point, I'd solved most of my problems or issues, but there was still one thing that was bugging me, and that was the water heater. Now, I could see this water heater from everywhere in the studio. So it was tucked under this little nook, under the stairs, and there it was, just looking at me, getting on my nerves every single time. So the water heater, it couldn't be moved. Well, I suppose it could have, but it would have been very costly. So it was staying exactly where it was. I had to figure out how to turn that frustration into a solution. Some of the things I thought about was putting a curtain over it. I thought about putting a folding screen in front of it. Now, a friend of mine had created a barn door for her bathroom in her studio, and she put magazine racks on it. Now, I thought about that, but I keep most of my magazines upstairs in my office, so that wouldn't work. but I did come up with a solution. I put up a barn door and I used it as my design wall and cover up that thing that grated on my nerves every time I looked at it. Now, one thing I've learned over the 20 years of my different studios, it's never about the furniture or about the decorations, but it's about thinking differently and solving problems creatively. Now, here's what I want you to get out of this video. I don't want you to wish for my studio. I want you to look at your studio just a little bit differently. Look at some of those problems or frustrations and see how you can turn them into solutions. See how you can think outside of the box and figure out something that makes it work for you. Now, the goal is not to eliminate every limitation. I could have taken that water heater and done something with it, but that would have been pretty pricey. The goal is to figure out and ask the question, how can I make this work for me? And once you start asking that question, you'll see opportunities everywhere. I had a saying, or I used to have a saying on my desk, is that obstacle is an opportunity in disguise. And that's the same way I see limitations. So my question to you is there one limitation in your studio that's just getting on your last nerve, like that water heater was for me? How can you turn that into an opportunity and make it work for you? Leave me a comment down below. We'd all love to know, and maybe we can help each other out with some ideas. I'm Angie. I'm a mixed media textile artist, and I'll see you in the next video.